Welcome to today's deep dive. Most of us, we treat our promises like decorative jewelry. They look great right up until the house catches fire.
Yeah, that is so true.
Right. Today, we're exploring a source text that really breaks down the anatomy of commitment. We're looking at three characters, Luffy, Jinbe, and Zoro, to figure out what actually separates a true promise from just a decoration. So, okay, let's unpack this. The author drops this knockout quote. They write, "A promise you keep only when it's convenient was never a promise. It was a preference wearing a promise's clothes."
Wow. A preference wearing a promise's clothes. It is that distinction is really the core of this whole deep dive. Because to define an actual promise, you have to look at its cost.
Yeah.
And we aren't talking about, one-time dramatic heroics here.
No, it's about the long game.
Exactly. If a promise is defined by its cost, we see that put to the test in repeated choices. Choices made long after the initial emotional satisfaction of making the promise has completely faded.
Which brings us to Luffy. I mean, look at him at Marineford. He's completely outclassed, basically half dead. But he made a promise to Ace to protect their shared little brother.
Yeah, and that promise just totally overrides his biological survival instincts. To him, a promise made out of love simply isn't negotiable just because the circumstances become lethal.
Right. And then you have Jinbe paying off this massive, decades-old debt.
Oh, Jinbe is such a perfect example of this. He holds this loyalty to his crew and his cause, and paying it costs him his standing, his safety, and eventually his home.
And he just pays it without any resentment.
None at all, because he understands that, debts of the heart don't have an expiration date just because they get inconvenient.
Wow. And then Zoro is maybe the quietest example of the three.
Definitely the quietest, but also maybe the oldest promise. He makes it to a dying child before he can even really comprehend the sheer weight of what it's going to mean. And he carries that through profound humiliations and near-death experiences.
Never once treating it like an option. Which, looking at everyday life, I kind of relate a promise to like a subscription service.
Oh, okay. How so?
Well, anyone can sign up when it's this fun, emotionally satisfying free trial. But who actually keeps paying when the free trial ends and the monthly cost suddenly skyrockets?
Most people just hit cancel.
Exactly. We just hit cancel.
Okay.
But I struggle to understand why these three characters don't. Is it just like pure stubbornness?
It is much deeper than stubbornness. What's fascinating here is this psychological concept of commitment under sunk emotional cost.
Okay, sunk emotional cost.
Right. It highlights the difference between people who honor commitments only while the emotional payoff is fresh and people whose sense of integrity is tied to their identity rather than their mood.
Oh, so to evolve my subscription analogy, for them, canceling doesn't just stop the service, it deletes their entire operating system. Like the promise is the actual code they run on.
That is a brilliant way to put it. Yeah, for Luffy, Jinbe, and Zoro, breaking their word wouldn't just cost the other person something. It would literally require them to become fundamentally different people.
The cost of losing their identity is way higher than the physical toll of keeping it.
Exactly.
Okay, wait. I do have to push back a bit when we get to the philosophical layer the text brings up. It brings in Immanuel Kant, who argues that a promise kept when it's easy tells you absolutely nothing about moral worth. But a promise kept when it is actively ruinous tells you everything.
Right, the ruinous promise.
Yeah, like, is a promise really only valuable if it ruins you? That feels excessively grim. I mean, what if keeping my word is just mutually beneficial?
I know it sounds grim, but Kant's nuance isn't about going out and seeking ruin. It's more about the ultimate stress test. If keeping a promise benefits you, it's kind of impossible to know if you're keeping it out of convenience or true moral duty.
Ah, so it's only when the promise demands an agonizing sacrifice that your true motivation is actually exposed.
Right, and Aristotle would actually build on this by framing it as a matter of character. For these three, keeping their word isn't an isolated, painful choice they have to consciously make every time. It simply is who they are. It's as automatic to them as breathing.
So what does this all mean for you listening? I want you to think of a promise you've made, maybe to someone else, maybe to yourself, that got incredibly expensive to keep. When the cost changed, did it change what you were willing to honor?
It's a tough mirror to look into.
It really is. There is no shame in honestly renegotiating a promise with the person you made it to. But there is a heavy cost to quietly abandoning one, hitting cancel, and telling yourself, well, circumstances changed. Which one have you actually been doing?
Which brings up a critical question to leave you with today. If our true character is forged only by the promises we keep when they are ruinous, what happens to our fundamental sense of self in a modern world that constantly trains us to prioritize our own immediate convenience above all else.